Hello everyone, Jacquie Edwards here. So I am recording from my bedroom today, so you can see a slightly different look. We're having a little bit of work done in the house, so there's some noise happening down there. So I thought I'll just pop in here, nice and relaxed. Yeah, so today I want to look forward to 2020 a little bit. So we're getting here towards the end of the year, it's nearly Christmas, and I wanted to talk about rent to rent being viable in 2020. So I get questions from people quite regularly saying, is rent to rent still a strategy that works? And I say absolutely yes, it is. I know there's a lot of talk in the market right now, especially here in the UK, because of all the new regulation that's coming in, that people are getting nervous. So lots of landlords are starting to think about selling their properties because of increased taxes and increased legislation around HMOs and service accommodation and tenants and everything having just an extra step of complexity on it. So a lot of people are thinking, oh, maybe this isn't the best time to get into rent to rent. A couple things to think about. First of all, the kind of tax changes, so on kind of mortgages, don't really impact you as a renter. Now, they can impact your property owner, but he's going to have to pay that tax whether he's renting the property to you or to some other end tenant. So, as a renter, it really doesn't matter. Legislation changes. There are always going to be legislation changes. We can't stop that. The main thing we need to do as business owners is learn how to work with any new legislation changes. So I think there'll probably be more legislation changes coming out over, the next year or two, where, yeah, it's going to make things a little bit harder for landlords and property managers like us to do our jobs. Because there are so many cowboys out there still, the government thinks that adding more legislation will, make things safer and better for tenants. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Usually, in my experience, it's just the good guys that follow the new legislation and they were doing the right thing anyways, but that's just how it is. So basically, we need to learn to run our businesses, no matter what happens and what changes. Because if you think of any business, if you were a big manufacturer, import-export laws change all of the time, and all businesses have to learn how to adjust. So we can't just say, oh my gosh, this business is no good anymore because, now tenants can't, have a Section 21 notice anymore or whatever they want to make the change be. But there'll still be a way to make sure everything works. So I would say don't worry too much about that. You still need to know the law and know what you need to do and follow it. But any changes that are coming in the future, there will be a way to still run your business with them. There are still going to be people that need to rent housing in the UK, that will need to live in HMOs, that can't afford to live in a flat or buy their own property. There are still, service accommodation is a booming industry. I don't see that going anywhere anytime in the near future. Yes, more legislation might come in. Again, it will improve standards. It will just make sure that we're not taking too much housing stock out of the kind of private rental market for that. But think about so if you're in the HMO market and more kind of private landlords are moving their properties onto short-term rentals and service accommodation, that makes your rooms more desirable. So all of those people that wanted to rent a flat, there's not as many flats available, prices of flats go up to rent. People can't afford to rent a flat, now they need a room in your HMO. Boom, HMOs are better. If you have more legislation in service accommodation, it just means that the ones that have really poor standards, they disappear. It just makes yours stand out even better because ideally you're already going to have a really good product with all of the kind of safety features that you need. So just keep going. Don't make your business decisions based on what might or might not happen in the future with the legislation. There are ways to make sure that you will be able to move forward. And best of all, with rent to rent, your contract should have a break clause on your side of the contract only, so that if something does happen in the future where you absolutely cannot run your business and it is not viable and you're not making any money, you can get out of that contract. You can say, I'm sorry, Mr. Landlord, here's your property back. Job done. You can't do that when you buy a property. If you buy that property and you put it up on for rent and all of a sudden everything changes and it's not viable for you anymore, it's going to be really difficult to sell that property because nobody else wants it because the strategy doesn't work anymore. Whereas with rent to rent, you have a lot less risk because you can just hand that property back and mitigate your losses. So rent to rent, absolutely viable. The strategy, whether it's HMO or service accommodation, are still going strong in most places in the UK because there will always be a demand for nice, good quality rental property from trustable, reliable agents and landlords. And there is a booming market for service accommodation that I only see getting bigger. So because you'll always have customers and tenants, you'll be able to rent your properties out. Now, again, you'll have to pay attention to your closer local market just to understand what's happening there. So, and how well it's going to work. You know, if you've got a big employer and they're closing down and moving out of your city, then you might want to just be a little bit careful. But again, you've got that break clause. So if anything changes in the future, you can break your contract, hand the property back to the owner, and away you go. So you'll have made your money on it over those months, and then everything changed, you hand the property back, and you're ready to go. But my battery is going to die in a second on my laptop because I've been working without the charger for a while. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I want to let you know to keep going. And I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago, but this is the best time of year to be sending out those HMO letters. So for those of you that is your strategy, make sure you're sending the letters out. Don't wait until after the holidays to do it. Send a batch out before the holidays because your landlord has time. They're off of work, they're spending just hanging out with the family, they've got time to open their post. This is the time of year that they're thinking about, what am I doing with my assets for next year? So make sure you're sending those letters out. Do not let anything put you back. You know, it's better to start today than wait till next month or the month after or the month after that to start. Conditions will never be absolutely perfect. You do not have to wait for perfection. Just get started, move forward, and you will be fine. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been wonderful, and I will see you again next week. Next week will be our last session before the holidays. So enjoy. Make sure you're getting my Business Booster emails. Go to renttorentacademy.co.uk, and at the very top of the page, sign up for my free email series. You're getting lots and lots of goodies and gifts this time of year. So thank you so much for joining me, and that really is it for now. See you next week.